All right, thank you, Robin, and thanks everyone for joining us. This session will be to address all your questions and just go over some of your concerns or the areas that you're interested in more detail. We already have a few questions in the chat, which Robin will be addressing. If you have more, just let us know. And you will be unmuted, so you are free to ask us any questions as well.
Okay, so I see that the questions that are in the chat right now are about breakout rooms and co-host. Those are great questions, and we didn't really go over those in depth in the past. So yay. Let's start with the co-host question, and it'll lead into the breakout rooms. So a co-host is a very useful person to have in any meeting. Having somebody assigned as a co-host, they can do anything a host can do except set up breakout rooms. They don't have any control over the breakout rooms. Only the host can do that. So the labels host and co-host are not necessarily indicative of what roles people are playing in a training. For example, the work that I do, we typically have trainers come in and teach sessions on social justice or neurobiology or nonviolence. But they are not the host, even though they're the trainer. I'm the host because I'm the one who's managing the technology. So I like to think of that as your host is managing the technology, including the breakout rooms. The co-host can support in managing the technology. For example, if I were a trainer, I might want to be able to unmute myself, or if I call on someone to be able to unmute them, and having that co-host capacity enables me to do that. And Wendy's asked if I'm the host, can I pass being host on to my co-host? Yeah, so let's see. Actually, Bayan, can you make me host? And then I'll make you co-host. So right now I'm co-host. And Bayan and I are going to switch roles. And I will make Bayan co-host. And I think today, everybody cross your fingers, I think we have the sharing of my screen set so that you'll be able to see my Zoom windows. Let's see if that is actually true. So if I share my screen right now, wow, there is something Bayan in your settings, because this worked right before I came on, and now it's not working again.
I was also wondering about that. So what do you recommend that I do in my settings? Would it be in like my user controls?
Yeah, I don't know. So there is a setting. So there's two settings to be able to show your Zoom windows. And I don't even know if this is really, important to everyone else, but we'll go through it really quickly. In your zoom.us on the internet, you have your settings there. You also have settings connected to your app on your computer. So, the little rectangle where you can log in, go to the settings on there to share screen, and there's a box that says show Zoom windows during screen share. You have to have both of those set in order to make it work. They are both set on my computer, and it did work for us once, and I don't know why it's not working now. So anyway, so we won't be able to do that, but I will just describe it very accurately for you. Okay. So when you hand over host controls, so like right now, Bayan gave me host controls. That means that I can set up the breakouts. I can have control of all of the meeting, but at any point she could reclaim those controls. And the way that she would do it would be to open the participant list to the right-hand side, go to the more option, and it would say, I think it says reclaim host controls. And then she could get it back. So this is an important feature, especially if you're, I don't know, you know, if you accidentally gave someone co-host and it was the wrong person, and that can happen. Like, you know, that participant list is constantly changing when people come into your meetings, and you might be hovering over Ode's name and going to give her co-host, and then next thing you know, you've given some random person co-host, and you're like, ah, what do I do? You can reclaim or withdraw co-host or host permissions using that more option on the participant list. And let's see, how can we get a co-host to share their screen? What would we be aware of in terms of the amount of control that they have? Okay, so again, the amount of control, one piece is just knowing that you can take it away. And I don't know, all of these things just seem so power over. Like, oh, I've got all the power, I can just take it away from you. Yeah, and there are moments when that's important. You know, I like to remind myself that if my child were running into the street in front of a big semi truck, I'm not going to stop and ask if they'd be willing to come back. I'm going to grab them. I'm going to impose power over. And in these Zoom meetings and stuff, sometimes we have to step into that as well. So sharing a screen, the way to get your co-host to share a screen is it is through your settings. Yeah, I'll go into share screen and, oops, and show you the settings for that. Let me get to Zoom. Okay. So I have logged in already to my Zoom account. Okay, and you should be seeing my Zoom account on the screen. And I'm in the settings portion of it. Okay, and I'm going to scroll through. I'm trying to scroll slowly so everybody doesn't get nauseous from the video screen showing. Plus, I have to look at all of these things. In here somewhere, co-host. Here's where you would enable co-hosts so that you can have a co-host in your meeting. And here we go. Screen sharing. So they used to have it separated for co-host. It is not anymore. Co-host and host are actually the same thing. So when you have who can share host, co-host can also share. If you want to do something like the whiteboard activity that I did, you would need to have it set so that all participants could share. Okay? That way they can annotate and be part of the activity. All right, stop that. The other place that you can set that, so you can set your main settings to say that participants can share, but you don't always want them to be able to do that, right? You may only want to have that happen when you're doing the whiteboard activity. And the rest of the time, you don't want them to have that option. So the security icon that is on the host Zoom account, which is down at that bottom menu where you see participants in chat, right to the left of that, there'd be a little security badge. Only the host has a security badge, the host and co-host right now. We're the only ones that will have that. And you know what? I bet you I could make everybody co-host since we are a small group. Yeah, Bayan, could you do that? Go through and just make everybody co-host for a moment so they can see these controls. I can't share my Zoom screen, but we can accomplish it a different way. I don't know. There used to be a limit of 5 co-hosts, but I haven't seen anything about that in a while. So maybe you can all be co-hosts. And then on the bottom,
I don't think I'm able to make someone else co-host.
By clicking on the more option and then choosing make co-host?
Yeah, it doesn't appear in my options. I don't have that option.
Okay, interesting. That's a change. So when they say a co-host can do everything a host can do, except for breakouts, that's not true. A co-host cannot create other co-hosts. So we learn these things as we go sometimes. And again, they change. And the update notes don't always make a whole lot of sense and don't always make it easy to know what the changes are. So I'm just working my way through here, making you all co-host so you can see the things that I'm seeing. And so far it hasn't stopped me. I think. Yeah, everybody's getting added. Hi, Des. I'm making you a co-host. And so what I'm wanting you to look at is the security icon on the bottom menu. Okay, click on that and you'll see that there, okay, so everybody is now a co-host, yep. So you'll see that there you have the option for allow participants to, and you can choose screen chat, share screen, chat, or rename themselves. And you can take away those possibilities from them. So as long as you've named it in your main settings, it's an option, and you can take it away through here. Okay? The remove participants thing, please know that if you remove someone, they cannot get back into your meeting. So that's not a, a casual thing to do. And then there's a new report option, and I don't know how that works, but when you report someone, I do know it's supposed to send a report to Zoom, and then I guess you get to elaborate on why you're reporting someone, and that Zoom might potentially follow up with them for, if they've come into your meetings and done things that you didn't want. I haven't had to use it, so I don't know. Okay, and for co-host to be able to share sound, yes. So sharing sound is an option that when you share your screen, it's not just about the co-host, it's about anybody. When you share your screen, you can all try this. You can click on share screen, but not actually try to share your screen. Just you'll see the white rectangle that shows up, and it'll have all the options that are shareable. At the bottom of that white rectangular box, there's something that says share computer sound. If you don't click share computer sound, then nobody will be able to hear your sound. So I played a 5-minute video one time with no sound, and everybody's, chatting to me, we can't hear anything, we can't hear anything. But I didn't want to, this isn't when I was new at this, and I didn't want to open up the chat because I was scared people would see the chat on my shared screen. So I just sat there and ignored all the chats for 5 minutes, and then, oh, you couldn't hear it. So again, live and learn. I did figure out how to do it after that. Okay. And any other questions about co-host? And you're all set so that you can unmute your microphones. And I'm happy to hear your voices because it gets a little odd and awkward to only be listening to myself talk for a long time. So feel free to open your mic and ask questions. Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's anything more about co-host, so we will move on to something else. Let's see, we have the breakout rooms. So he's asking if everyone was logged in under the ESD global account, would breakout rooms work? So Zoe, can you unmute yourself and give me a little more information on that? What do you?
Sure. So yesterday we had a situation in an agency staff meeting where the executive director wanted to do breakout rooms at the end of the meeting, but it turned out that like 7 people had signed in as her because there's one that's for the agency, and instead of using their own, there were like 7 different people with her name. So my assumption was that this wouldn't work. I actually ended up being co-host and not host, so I didn't even have the button to try, but that's going to be a problem, right? Because they're all reading as the same person.
Yeah, yeah. So you really, I mean, according to Zoom, you shouldn't even be able to do that. But you can, and I know you can because I've done it too, but it does mess with functionality. Some things will work, some things won't work. And it's not a fun thing to find out in the moment if you're trying to do something and suddenly you can't do breakout rooms, or your meeting doesn't record properly, or something, there's some snafu somewhere because you have all these people logged in under the same account. So oftentimes it happens by accident. So if you've ever logged in as a particular account, like the one I normally use is MVC Academy, and since I'm often logged in as that account and operating as MVC Academy, anytime I click a link, even if I've signed into my personal Zoom account, anytime I click a link, it will open the MVC Academy account and log me in as MVC Academy. So occasionally I've shown up here and I'm like, oops, I'm MVC Academy. Let me log out real quick. So the answer that I have found is, as a person trying to be really responsible about how I show up to meetings, if I'm showing up as Robin's account, or if I'm showing up as ESD's account, or if I'm showing up as MVC Academy's account, I actually copy and paste the meeting ID and password into the join of the account that I want to use, because I have no guarantee that clicking the link is going to open the right account. So that doesn't completely answer your question, but I think it's a really important piece of information for all of us who are using multiple accounts. According to Zoom, we're not supposed to do that. That's not how they designed Zoom. They don't really want to see us doing that, but you know, it works well for us, right? We can't afford to pay for an account for, you know, 50 people, 50 different people, and we don't really need to. So just to be really careful how you sign in. Would it have worked? I don't know. It might have, it might not have. Yeah, it could have caused some problems. So no real answer there. Sorry, Zoe. Okay, is it possible to have 2 simultaneous meetings going on from the same account? No, only one meeting at a time from that account. Now, if your account has, if you have a main account like ESD Global, and then you have 3 other pro accounts that are nestled under that, those other 3 accounts can have different meetings running at the same time, because you're logging in as a different host by each account. Okay. Breakouts. Well, is there anything else on that or related to that? If not, we'll move into breakouts. Okay, so now I need to go take away the co-host option from everyone. Actually, is there anything else you all want to know about co-hosting while I have you all labeled as co-hosts? So you might want to explore that. Since you're all co-hosts right now, you can take your mouse and hover over any person's name and see what options you have as a co-host. So you'll be able to chat, which you can do that even if you're not a co-host. You can stop video, which is sometimes helpful if somebody doesn't realize that their video was on and they decided to change clothes, or you know, maybe something's going on in their background that's distracting. You can just stop their video. And it will send a note to them saying the host has stopped your video. So they may ask you, they may say, hey, why'd you stop my video? Well, spotlight video, which is why you see only me right now. Bayan has spotlighted my video. Actually, now we see Ode. I think Ode spotlighted Ode's video.
I did. I had trouble spotlighting, and then I turned off my mute, and then I was able to spotlight.
No.
And I did both.
And you can rename people. That's very helpful sometimes if people show up as Samsung 36, you know, and they can't figure out how to do the rename. I can just do it for them. All right, so that's co-host. I'm going to take away the co-host option from everybody now. Draw co-host. And then we're going to move into breakout rooms. So breakout rooms, you can have up to 50 breakout rooms. Let me tell you what, 50 breakout rooms is insanity. I had to do that, and I thought I was going to lose my mind, but it worked. We made it. And you can have as few as 1 person in a breakout room, which seems kind of silly, right? Or I've never seen a limit on how many people can be in a breakout room. So I haven't hit that limit yet. So I don't know that there is one. And when you're setting up breakout rooms, it's not extremely intuitive. Let's see, did I get everybody off a co-host? I did. Yay. So on your bottom menu, one of the options would be breakout rooms. It's right next to the record spot. And on your screen, it would be right where your reactions icon is. That would say breakout rooms, if you could see it. And only the host can do this. When it opens up, it has a little rectangle that says, right now, we have 14 people in the room, so it says assign 13 participants into how many rooms, and you choose how many rooms. So if I want to have 3 or 4 people in a room, that would be 3 rooms, roughly 4 to 5 people in a room. If I only wanted to have 2 people in a room, then I would want to open up, 7 rooms. I always open a couple extra rooms just in case people show up. I'll have a place to put them. If you haven't opened a couple of extra rooms before you open the breakout, you won't be able to. Okay, so you're going to choose your number of rooms. Then you have 2 options. You can assign them automatically. So it will just sort everybody randomly and pop you into rooms, or you can assign them manually. Manually might be helpful, like if you had 5 assistants who were working with you and you wanted to put an assistant in each room, that would be helpful, because then you can just assign them to 5 rooms and then put 3 or 4 other people in each of those rooms. Sometimes it's helpful, like if I'm going to record a breakout room and I've gotten consent from 4 people, I'll probably do it manually so I can put those 4 people into the room with the recording. It also depends on how many total people are in your meeting. When I have 100 people, I do not do breakout rooms manually. Even if I have those other issues, like I want to, put these 4 people who've given consent in a specific room, I will do it all automatically. Then I'll find those 4 people and shift them, because that seems easier to me than sorting 100 people into rooms. Trying to think of what else you might want to know there. Once you've decided automatic or manual, it will open up a screen and it will show you all 10 rooms. If you're doing it manually, those rooms will be empty and you can assign the people to the rooms. If you've done it automatically, they'll be there. But either way, once they're assigned to their rooms, you can move people. So I can move someone from room 1 to room 6, or I could exchange people. So if Mona was in room 1 and I wanted to switch her and Amelia, then I could simply exchange them. I'd highlight both those names, click exchange, and boom, one of you'd move into the other room. Let's see. I'm looking to see the questions in the chat. Okay. So Zoe says, does the host need to be in that room to record? So that's an interesting thing. When they first did breakout rooms, yes, the recording followed the host. So if I was the host and I was recording to the cloud, for example, the recording would follow me into any room that I was in. And it was quite annoying if I were jumping from room to room to room, answering questions, and you'd get, a split second of this or that or the other. It also doesn't allow for consent, because if I show up, we're recording, unless I remember to stop, and then I have to remember to restart it. And, so Zoom actually changed that so that the recording doesn't follow you into a breakout room when you're the host. So if you want to record a breakout room, the only way I've found to do that is to have a second computer. Maybe it's not the only way. It's the most efficient way that I've explored. There's probably other ways. Have a second computer logged in, and you'll see I do have a second computer. It's down here called Extra Line. So it's logged in on my free Zoom account. So it's just a participant. And I can assign it to a breakout room, and I can allow it to record locally. So it'll record that breakout room on my other computer. Actually, I can record the whole session, locally, which is, so if I don't have video editors, which some of the groups that I work with, we don't have video editors, and they do want a breakout room recorded. So I will record the whole meeting locally on that computer, including the breakout room, and then I can upload that recording without any editing, and it's all there. Another group that I work with has video editing, and for whatever reason they prefer the cloud recording. I don't know why. and they take the breakout out of my local recording and add it to the cloud recording. I don't really know why they do that, but it works for them. So, you know, there's different ways of accomplishing it. Let's see. Do you recommend pausing the recording during the breakouts if you aren't going to be in one intentionally to record? So yeah, that time period, the host recording, so on the one computer that I'm using, that recording is being recorded to the cloud. And if we're in breakout rooms, it's just going to record me sitting here, you know, for whatever it is, 10 minutes, doing some work, or maybe I turn off my video, you know, so it's just recording my little tree picture for that whole 10-minute period of time. If you pause it, it won't record during that time, and you wouldn't have to do any editing on that. But again, you're not going to have the breakout recording on that recording. So it doesn't really matter if you're going to use the other recording. Does that make sense? Anyone who that didn't make sense for, please open your mic and ask me a question. And again, I'm tired of hearing myself talk, so somebody should ask a question out loud. So, okay. So Zoe, if you get called into a room for help, would that show up? So if you're recording as the host to the cloud and you go to a breakout room, that's not going to show up in the recording. Your local computer, your second computer, if it's in a breakout room and recording and you go in there, it is going to record you while you're in there on that local recording.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for talking. I appreciate it. And Tasha, what I was saying before wasn't fully clear. I would love, you know, if you have a question about it, I'd love to hear your question, because I'd like to make it more clear. And I totally get that this is, you know, not the most clear thing. And it's, yeah, it's just something that I figured out how to do to make my courses work the way that I wanted them to.
Hi. So I have to talk really low because my boyfriend's sleeping and then my housemates are sleeping, which is why I wasn't going to talk originally. Okay. But basically, so what I'm hearing is that it would record you for 10 minutes, but if you had it scheduled for your other room, the one that you are in charge of, you can record it and it wouldn't record you during the 10 minutes.
Right. Right. So yes, there's two types of recordings. This might make it more clear because I didn't really specify this. There's a cloud recording, and you can tell how you're recording. So if you look at the participant list right now, you'll see that next to my name and ESD Global, there's a little cloud symbol with a red dot flashing in it. And that means that we're recording to the cloud. So it's being stored in the cloud right now. If I were recording on my other computer, and I will actually, well, I can't. So I would have to tell that computer.
I don't see a cloud anywhere.
If you look at the participant list, or
oh, I have to go somewhere else?
Yeah, if you look at the participant list, next to my name and ESD Global's name, you'll see the little cloud symbol.
Oh yeah,
I see with the cloud recording. Yeah. If it were a local recording, you'd just see a round red dot next to the person's name.
Okay.
ESD's account is not set up to allow other people to record, so I can't show you that right now. But if I could, you'd see a little.
I'll only be using their account anyway. So.
Okay. But if you're going to do breakout recordings, that might be something to change in the ESD settings. When you can allow people to record only if you give them permission. So if you change the settings to allow recordings, then if a participant wants to do a local recording, they have to ask for permission, and you have to click next to the name saying allow record, which is what I do on mine. So even though my two computers are sitting side by side and they're both me, one of them is logged in as a participant, and so I have to give it permission to record.
Is there a minimum amount of people that can be in a group in order for you to do breakout groups?
Well, you have to have at least 3 people in your meeting, maybe only 2. You could, I mean, there's not a whole lot of reason to do a breakout, 2 breakout rooms for 2 people, but you could. So what's the smallest breakout room you could envision using?
I mean, I guess for me, if I had a group, because I've been doing hosting these virtual dinner parties and then having group discussions, maybe doing like 8, which would put it that you could have 2 groups of 4, or you could do 4 groups of 2, and then they can have a more in-depth discussion, and then you could come back together as a group.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, you can do that. Okay, other questions on breakout rooms? And would it be valuable to anyone to go into a breakout room?
Yes.
Okay, we can do that. And any other questions on breakout rooms? Okay, so once I open these rooms, things you're going to want to look for when you're in there, and these are things that you want to know to be able to tell people sometimes, or it might be helpful for your participants to know, is that once they're in a breakout room, they can open the chat and chat with each other in that breakout room. They can also see any chat that happened before the breakout room was open. So I can type instructions into the chat now, and people will still see those instructions when they're in the breakout room if they open their chat. Okay, so that's a very helpful way to let people know what they're going to do in the breakout rooms. For example, I did a Defend Yourself workshop a couple weeks ago, and they wanted to give a different scenario to each room to work on in their breakout room. And they tried to do it by broadcasting the message into the room, but there's a finite number of characters that can be broadcast. So it cuts off, part of the scenario sometimes, and it only flashes across your screen for, 20 seconds. So it's not a long time to read it, process it, and figure out what you're going to do. But if you typed those into, or copied and pasted those into the chat, then they would be there for people to see once they're in their room. So if you had 5 rooms open and you had 5 scenarios, you could name them room 1 scenario, room 2 scenario, room 3 scenario. When they get there, they'll see all of them, but they just have to look and see what room they are and then follow that scenario. They'll also need to unmute themselves once they're in there. And so you need to make sure people know how to unmute themselves. If they're on the phone, they'll need to know that they have to use *6 to unmute themselves. And there's a call for host option, and there's a leave your breakout room option. So you don't get stuck in that netherworld alone. Like if you went to a breakout room and nobody else showed up and you're just sitting there going, I don't know what I'm gonna do for 15 minutes. You can leave and go back to the main room, or you can call the host and ask for help. So look for all of those things when you're in your breakout room so that you know what they look like and how to use them. And I'm gonna type something into the chat so that you'll be able to see that. Okay, so you can all see it now. This is the message that people would see. When you go into your breakout room, you'll still be able to see that message. And you can chat with each other in there, but anything you type in the chat stays in there. In other words, you can't send me a chat when I'm in the main room. And I can't send you a chat. All right, let's see. I am going to break us into groups of 2 to 3 automatically. I'm just going to create the rooms. And so here's another thing to know. When you create breakout rooms as a host, your co-hosts, if you do it automatically, your co-hosts will be sent into breakout rooms too. Okay, just as if they were participants. So if you don't want that to happen, you can do it manually, or you can move them around. So sometimes if there are people who don't want to go to breakout rooms, but I still want to use the automatic feature, like if, Zoe didn't want to go to a breakout room and she had told me that, I've still used the automatic feature. I can just move Zoe to a breakout room of her own. And she doesn't have to go. She can stay in the main room, or she could go sit in a breakout room on her own. All right, so I have rooms opened or rooms set up. We can all just go to those rooms for a minute or two. I will, oh, here's another one. You can set the time when you close the room. You can set it so it has a certain amount of time before it brings everybody back to the main room. The default setting is 60 seconds, and that's what people who use Zoom and breakout rooms are pretty used to. So I've never changed that in any of my meetings. But if you really wanted to, you could change it. You can take it all the way up to 120 seconds, so 2 minutes. It'd be a 2-minute warning. Or you could take it all the way down to 10 seconds, you know, and just give them no time. You can also click options that will take people into breakout rooms automatically without having to choose to go to the breakout room. Again, I've never done that because there's some piece of consent that really matters in that to me. I want people to decide if they want to go to breakout rooms. And you can have breakout rooms close automatically. And this is handy if you're doing a breakout room at the end of a workshop and you want to be able to leave. You could just set it to end the breakout room after 30 minutes so that people automatically were brought out. I think that's it. So I'm going to open the rooms now. If you want to go explore a breakout room for 2 minutes, and I'll give you the 1-minute warning, you can do that. And if you want to stay in the main room, you can do that too. You don't have to go. And you can practice using the call host or going back and forth. You can come back to the main room and then go back to your breakout room. So go ahead and practice all of those things. Send yourselves a chat, you know, see what happens so that you really get to play around with this and have an understanding of what it'll feel like on the other end. All right, so once I open rooms, a box will flash on your screen that says join breakout room, and you can join or say later. And then as the host, I can see when you join. Okay, and everybody who's still in the main room, I'm assuming and guessing that this is where you would like to be. If you wanted to go to a breakout room, just let me know, and I'll make sure you get there. All right, I'm going to close the room. I'll give everybody 1 minute to get back. Okay, we're still waiting on breakout room 5. They must be having a good conversation in there. They got about 30 seconds left. It's funny how long 30 seconds can seem. I'm just like, that was only 30 seconds. And I don't remember if I told you all this before, but one of my mentors who does some amazing online trainings and courses and has done it for the last decade, she says, silence online, she says it's uncomfortable. She says, you know, you really have to wait until you're uncomfortable and then wait that long again. You know, give people time and space to answer a question, to think, to acclimate, to move their hand towards the screen, to raise it. You know, it takes a lot longer to make those actions happen, to go from your body to your brain, for your brain to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna raise my hand now. Oh wait, this doesn't work. I have to go find it on the computer. You know, it takes a long time. And if you're not someone who normally steps in anyway, stepping in online can take even longer. So yeah. All right, so it looks like everybody is back. How were the breakout rooms? Any questions specifically?
So what were the different steps that you took in order to do the breakout room? Like how visually, I don't know if you can share the screen or something, but just showing the different steps.
I wish I could. And I don't even have my external camera today. Let's see, I wonder, I might be able to manage this if I might be able to show you.
Can I ask a question? Because you were explaining something when we came back, and I missed. I don't know what you were explaining. Is it something we need to know?
It was just a handy tip. I was saying silence online can feel really awkward. So for example, if you say, you're asking a question, so let's all name, you know, a part of self-defense, you know, the fight part of self-defense, and nobody says anything. You know, there might be this instinct like, oh, nobody wants to play with me. Nobody wants to answer my questions. You know, nobody knows the answers. Yikes, I must not have been doing a good job if nobody knows what to say. You know, but in reality, there's probably, you know, 10 people there thinking, oh, I'm going to wait and let somebody else talk. Or I really don't want to speak online, or I don't even know how to raise my hand, or their brain is thinking about the answer. They finally come up with an answer, and then they have to think, oh, wait, that doesn't work. I have to go find the raise hand option. It takes longer for people to process and speak up. So one of my mentors says, if there's silence, wait until you feel uncomfortable, and then wait that long again. And you might even name it, you know, that, yeah, sometimes it's hard to sit in silence, especially online. And I want to make sure that you have plenty of time to think and consider and to, you know, find the raise hand option.
And is it also just, you could also just call on people? You could say, would you like to say something?
You could, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I am going to try to get slightly fancy here. I don't know. There's probably way too much glare. You can't actually see my screen, can you? That's too bad. If I move really well, can you, let's see. So it's hard for me to tell what you're seeing, but here I'm going to click the breakouts. Can you see the breakout? Let's see if I adjust it enough. Can you see the rectangle box that says breakout room 1, breakout room 2? So somebody has to actually let me know.
Not
I can
really.
see it, but I can't read it.
Too small.
Yeah, that was my worry. You're not
And a little low.
Yeah. Okay, so we're not going to try to do that. That's probably more irritating than helpful. So I will describe it to you. There is when I click the breakout rooms option on my bottom menu, a rectangle will appear on my screen. and it will have options that says assign 13 participants, because it will assign everybody that's here except for me, into how many rooms. And I choose how many rooms they're going to be assigned into. So in this case, I chose 5. Then I have a spot where I can click do it automatically or do it manually. Automatically will just distribute people evenly throughout those rooms. Manually, I can pick who goes into which room. And then I click create rooms. Once I've clicked create rooms, another box will open up. So it's not going to send people off until I've had time to confirm that everything's the way that I'd like it to be. Okay, so now I show breakout room 1 and it has 3 people, breakout room 2 and it has 3 people, etc. I can move people around at that point simply by putting my mouse over top of their name, and next to their name will be an option to move to. So I could move to room 1 or move to room 4, or exchange. So I could exchange Amelia and Connie if I wanted to. Then on the bottom, you've got an option for add a room. Again, this is important. Always make sure you have a couple of extra rooms, empty rooms, just in case you need them. And then the next thing is open rooms. And you tell people I'm going to open the rooms now. There's going to be a dialog box that shows up on your screen. You can click join or later. And if you say later, it won't take you to a breakout room. So that's basically it. Once you've had a breakout room, when you close it and everybody comes back, you can open up those same breakout rooms again, or you can recreate and redistribute people. So if you wanted to have, you know, like sometimes we tell people to go talk to somebody they haven't talked to yet. You know, we can't necessarily make that happen, but we can rearrange the rooms. You know, I'm not going to put you in the same triads. You know, we're going to randomly create new triads so you'll get a chance to meet some new people or to interact with someone else. Or it might be important to have people stay in the same groups because they're developing some knowledge and trust, and or maybe continuing on an exercise that has different parts. You know, so you have flexibility in there. All right, what else do you want to know?
I actually was wondering, I know it's not exactly the technical Zoom, but if we have time, it'd be cool to just see some game ideas using these different features. Like if we were to teach some sort of ESD class, how could we take these features and make like productive activities?
That sounds great. Absolutely.
How? Like I want you to tell me how.
Yeah, so I did a couple in the past. Like I did the whiteboard activity where we can open up a whiteboard and we can all contribute information to a whiteboard, which is similar to maybe having a big white sheet of paper on the wall and we're all writing down different things that we've been told about self-defense. You know, often like in workshops, you know, we'll do that as the facilitator, we'll do the writing on a whiteboard or on a sheet of paper. But in this case, we can have other people contribute to it. You could, you know, maybe use that as a stop line. Put a whiteboard up and draw, or not a stop line, a clothesline. Draw a clothesline on it and name the different pieces and have people mark on the clothesline where they think it would be. Other ideas? Anyone else have ideas? You don't have to just use a whiteboard. It could be other things. Like, okay, here's one I did last time too. I shared my screen and I had a person image up on the screen and everybody could use the annotate option to mark the points on a body that are vulnerable. And then we could do it again and mark the points that are the strong points.
It's not just in Zoom, but one thing that I've gotten from Training for Change is that you can have folks access a deck of Google Slides where you can have other activities. And if you set it up so that the share link is available to be edited by anyone, then they don't have to be signed in as themselves, and they can anonymously respond, which sometimes feels better or safer for people.
Yeah, and what kind of, give us an example of what you would use that for specifically. What kind of game you would use that for specifically?
So maybe something about unhelpful safety information you've received. I have one slide that has a bunch of Post-it notes on it, and people can double click on a Post-it note to share that, unhelpful piece of information or some, stereotype they've heard about, what's dangerous and what's safe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I'd love to see that in action. I would really enjoy seeing that in action. So do you have a Google slide deck ready for us?
Give me a moment and I will whip something up.
Oh, that would be really cool. I was half joking, but I'm glad that you can do it. Other ideas like breakout rooms can be used for anything that you would normally send people off to do on their own. Role plays. People do role plays in breakout rooms. There are some limitations because, when I send people off in a big gymnasium room and there's, 3 people over here and 3 people over here, I can still hear and see what's happening. And if, body posture or tone is such that somebody needs help, I can tell and I can go over and help them. When they're in these little Zoom breakout rooms, I can't do that. So we have to really design a culture of trust so that people will ask for help, so that they'll click that little ask for help button so that I can then go in and help them. And yeah, I think I would probably do the really intense exercises later in a course. If it's a 12-week course, I'd do them, after 3 or 4 weeks of developing community and trust and working together so we know each other.
Cindy, you had your hand raised.
Somebody has their hand raised?
Me.
Yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
Is it not possible that, is there no function where the host can see all of the breakout rooms, like we're seeing the gallery of each other, that you could see? No?
No.
That's like something they should have.
Well, technically it's at this point not a possibility, because breakout rooms are literally a brand new Zoom meeting. So it's like you have 50 different Zoom meetings happening. And so to be able to look into those 50 Zoom meetings, I'm guessing takes more than is available in the moment. So, but yes, it would be fun.
So
Helpful. It would be more like what you do when you're teaching a class in a gym.
Yeah, it would be.
an activity that I ended up doing, what was it? No, today's Thursday. Yeah, so 2 days ago was for external and internal awareness. I ended up taking a picture of my living room, and then I switched things around. So I took that picture before the actual meeting, and then I switched things around and moved stuff and shuffled it. And then I had them tell me what was different. So you could actually potentially do that with multiple rooms, take a picture and then switch stuff around, and then do the breakout rooms and have them analyze what was different about each one. So then they're more aware about external differences in their environment.
Excellent, excellent. I think you could probably do, you know, some kind of intuition, you know, moving towards each other exercise. So like right now, my picture is spotlighted. So I see me, you all see me. I mean, if you're in gallery, I guess you see everybody still. But if you put it back on speaker view, then you would really only see me taking up the greatest portion of your screen. And we could ask people to, you know, like walk towards each other. You know, when does it feel uncomfortable? When have I gotten too close? You know, what is that like? Like, yeah, so I can tell I'm getting too close to me. So, I mean, it'd be something to play around with to see what that's like, you know, to to notice. You could even do it in breakout rooms with like just pairs who were walking towards each other. Might be a little less intimidating than knowing there's 12 other people staring at me walking towards my computer.
So I created a deck, and there is a link in the chat, which you should be able to follow to see interactive slides. So if anyone wants to give that a try, let me know how that works for you.
Excellent. It's saying I have to have permission.
Okay, interesting. Let me work on that.
So there are all kinds of interactive activities now, like so like that whiteboard activity that I do. I had another group that used a screen online that was more attractive, that you could actually grab memes and pin them to the board. And it was fun. It was just kind of a connection, fun activity where we were grabbing things that, represented how we felt in the moment. We could type in words, we could draw a picture, we could grab a meme, something along those lines. And that was fun. Okay, it worked for me this time. Cool. So I'm clicking on the link, and it is actually just opening right up for me.
Excellent. Do you see a series of slides?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So is everybody else able to click on that link and follow this too? And then
So I have a whole bunch of people anonymously looking at the top. Everyone gets an animal. And then you should be able to click on things and edit. And there's a couple of options here for templates that they've created, which you can get at Training for Change.
Cool. Oh, I like your slide. How prepared I feel after training to use Zoom platform. So did you just create these all in like the last 20 seconds?
So I have a template that I've been using that I've been modifying from one training to another. So what they provide the format, so the spectrum or the slide with the post-it notes or the circle that you can create for people being around a table. So people have an order to respond in. So there's a bunch of different ones that they have, and you can just edit the content of what's on the slide, but the actual way the activity is set up is created for you.
That is really cool. So I see here now it's set in view only, so we can't actually edit, and that's fine. And this would be a really fun thing to play around with. Are you willing to give us a link in the chat to where you found these at?
Yeah, I think I have the whole deck. I can dig that up.
That would be really cool. I wonder if ESD Global has a space, like a document or a Google folder that we could be putting these ideas and stuff into to share with each other.
We could share a document for everyone and post that on the closed ESD movement group so that everyone has access to it, if that's helpful.
I think that would be really cool. And Ode is saying in the mentor drives, and yeah, it'd be really cool for us to use our collective wisdom, in this time where we're not able to be out there training physically in person. Let's use our collective wisdom to support each other. And I see it's 1 minute till the top of the hour. It's amazing how fast an hour can go.
Robin, we really want to thank you for doing this Q&A session. We already had 2 sessions on Zoom, and I think that it's quite important, especially during these times where Zoom is a really useful tool for everyone to, share ideas and meet with their mentors. So really appreciate your time, and thanks everyone for joining us today. As always, we will have this recording up on our group and our website. We hope you have a good day and that you stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
I
Bye.
look forward to seeing you in person again someday.
Stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Yeah, excellent. And you can reach out to me with any specific questions. I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take care, everyone.
You want to run your meeting?
Robin.
All right.
Thanks, Rhea.
I'm gonna end the meeting.
I'm gonna
See y'all
leave the
later.
meeting. Bye.